Hello and welcome to Behind the Folk, which is a weekly chat with some of the best singer-songwriters and folk artists around. And of course, by best, I mean my favourite, which qualifies them as being very much the same thing. And Megan Henwood is very, very high up on that list ever since first listening to, well, when I listened to Making Waves, it would have been about 6, 7 years ago, so maybe a couple of years after it was released. But
Yeah,
morning, Megan.
quite a while after it was released. That seems like another lifetime ago.
It does. So much has happened since then. Right. So, from my memory, since Making Waves, you've recorded some more albums. You've performed at Glastonbury. Most recently, a collaboration with another favourite of mine, Finlay Napier, which makes you one half of the Story Song Scientists as well. We'll talk about that throughout too. But it's a busy life of a musician. But I can't not ask this in July 2020. But how's lockdown been for you?
Interesting, as I'm sure most people's answer is. Yeah, there's elements of it that I quite enjoyed, and elements that I found very difficult. Um, it meant that so my partner was furloughed, so he was off work. Obviously, that's what furlough means, and so it meant that I had a bit of help with our new tiny baby, which meant that I could do a bit more music. So I wasn't really expecting to be able to come back to writing and stuff quite so soon. So that was cool.
I
But
quite No, go on. Sorry.
just I was just going to say it was absolutely crazy as
Because
well.
it's interesting to get talking to different artists to find out whether COVID has kind of hindered or helped the songwriting process. But it sounds like it's
Well,
maybe not aided it, but it hasn't certainly hampered it.
I mean, in terms of actually having time to do it, that I didn't think I would. It allowed me that. But I think there was a huge amount of pressure for all creative people to suddenly use this time to create. Um, well, whilst there's this, crazy, scary new thing going on for everyone, and getting your head around this. So I think, yeah, I mean, for me, from a personal point of view, because I was on maternity leave, I didn't actually lose much work really. Um, but everyone around me, all my friends, colleagues, my brother is also a musician. They've lost so much work, and
Mm.
there's no, for a lot of people now, there's kind of things are slowly getting back to normal, and they can kind of see how things are going to pan out, and their work is kind of coming back, but not really the case for a lot of musicians and
So
people like that. So
you've been quite vocal on social media in your support for Music Venues Trust,
yeah.
and which do some phenomenal work to help grassroots music venues. But the with I know there's the aided ability of being able to perform online gigs, which you yourself took part with Finley last weekend. But how, with only outside gigs happening at the moment, which I hope is not on a very wet day like today, anyone is, but the how do we get the songwriters, because it's all well and good having venues open and ready to to welcome artists in, but how do we get that? How do we get artists continuing in any genre, really, continuing to produce the art that we need to ultimately keep the world turning?
Um, so I guess I mean, there's quite a lot that was wrong before. You could actually disregard COVID altogether and have this conversation, because small independent venues that generally are the places where, kind of not the upper echelons of pop stars and all of that lot, but people that make it their living. That's where they make their living a lot of the
Mm.
time now, because that's often where you can, actually connect with your fans. They will buy the album that you've spent your money making, and time and effort and talent that you've put into it, and they will, you know, part with their cash for that. Whereas, if it all becomes even more online centered, it's just going to encourage more people just to listen online. And obviously, it's great. It's great that people are able to use things like Spotify, and they're fantastic tools finding new music and experiencing new things and all of that. You can't now. It would be unwise as a musician in this day and age to completely write Spotify off. But there has to be some kind of balance, because it's not sustainable now that people don't, buy music basically. But it still costs the same to make the music. So there's not, it's that disparity. So I think I actually can't remember what the question was now.
No, not really. It was just more about how we can encourage the artists. I mean, you opened up a whole new conversation about Spotify, which is great. Because ultimately, am I right in thinking that the money ultimately goes into just a big... When I listen to a Megan Henwood album, Rivers, or Doors, which is a beautiful new song, which we'll talk about in a bit later anyway. But that money, when I listen to that, the small percentage that you get doesn't go to you. It goes into a pot, which is then spread out amongst obviously all the other listens and all the other artists.
I mean, yeah, you get what is relative to the amount of plays that you've had. So, but then that's kind of similar to the PRS. That all goes into a big pot, and then you get what is how much music has been exposed. Then, so yeah, I mean, and you can make money on Spotify if it is played millions of times, and if
you're Ed Sheeran or Taylor Swift.
Exactly. There's a shift now though from when I started with Making Waves, I had a whole team behind me, and I had connections with Radio 2 quite more heavily then, and I had the singles. I think I had 2, maybe 3 of the singles from that album playlisted on Radio 2. Which directly affects your PRS and your momentum and all of that kind of stuff. But now, even just in, I think, 10, 12 years, I can't remember, it's more, the shift is on playlist designers on Spotify. So you want to get your new song, instead of getting your new song on the radio, you want to get your new song on all the hottest playlists, so that then it will, the ones that people listen to the most, therefore it kind of exponentially gets listened to.
Yeah, no, I hadn't thought of that. Now, we've met. I don't expect you, by the way, in your incredibly busy touring life to remember, but you were supporting Roddy Frame at Cadogan Hall.
Oh yeah.
And I am a big Roddy Frame fan, I have to say. Yeah, you were outside by the merch store. Well, obviously you were supporting him, but in the break in between, you were outside by the merch stall, and we had a brief chat there, very briefly. I don't expect you to remember. It's okay.
I'm so sorry. I mean, I don't remember what I did yesterday. I've got really terrible memory.
It was a while ago. It must have been about 4 or 5 maybe years ago. Yeah. It was. And the reason being is because normally when you go and see an artist, and again, Roddy Frame isn't up there with the popularity of the Ed Sheerans of this world, but it often supports. Yeah, well, I mean, anyone's day will come, and of course, he still has some songs played on Radio 2, I guess. When you do get a supported artist, and when I found out it was you, I was very pleased. I was delighted. I thought, not only is it someone I've heard of, but someone I like. Oh. So I felt it was 2 gigs for the price of 1, as far as I was concerned, which was brilliant. But how is it because I was very conscious of the fact that obviously everyone's there to go see Roddy Frame, so therefore the stalls were largely empty. Not empty, no, that's wrong. They were half empty in comparison to where they were when Roddy came on. How does that feel? I mean, I don't want this to... I'm not trying to highlight anything wrong or negativity, but how does that feel as an artist? Because if you go out there, you give it your all, you perform beautifully, you got some audience participation in there as well, as you sang, and yeah. But how does it feel for you when that happens?
I mean, I'm used to playing pretty empty rooms from when I started out, and sometimes now too. That's fine. I'm not ashamed. But I think so. So Roddy, my manager Phil Knox Roberts has worked with Roddy for his whole career, basically. So that particular gig was quite a kind of friendly, nice. I'd met Roddy before, and it was Christmas, and it was a kind of, there was a nice vibe around it. So it was less of a kind of like, I've got to make. Obviously, I want to make the most of every opportunity, but it didn't feel as pressured in some ways. Another thing to point out is that often what you just described, as in support acts, people not bothering to turn up, which is again fine. That is most prevalent in London, and that gig was in London.
It was.
Any any gig that I've ever done as a support in London, people, it's just a weird phenomenon. I don't know why. In other places, so when I supported Show of Hands on tour, people were very keen to come and see the support act and just, you know, get their money's worth as well, which is kind of a point to make. But I don't mind it, really.
No.
However many or little people there are in the audience, I'm trying to pretend they're not there anyway in some ways, because I'm quite reluctant performer. So it's cool, it's fine. I appreciate anyone that sits and listens. I appreciate that anyone that tolerates it. I appreciate anyone that appreciates it. So yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed that gig. I remember the shadows being crazy. Do you remember the way it was lit?
Yes, it was. He had this. Yeah, it was quite a feature of his set as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the Cadogan Hall is a beautiful venue as well.
It is. I think that makes a difference. If you're playing to no one in a kind of dark, dingy, sticky floored, you know, hole, then that can be quite kind of sort of affect your spirit maybe somewhat. But if you're as a singer, to sing into a room that is built for acoustics and that sounds, you know, has that kind of atmospheric thing, then it's actually quite pleasurable just to stand there on your own and do it. So yeah, that helps. So.
And it was around. Well, you were performing songs from what was your forthcoming album, Head, Heart, Hand, as well, which was a very beautiful, heartfelt album. I felt as well. But again, there's so much and of course you're going to perform 2 songs today. I have no idea what songs they're going to be. I'm going to hazard a guess that one of them might be Doors, but I could be wrong.
Very good guess. Yeah.
Is that inspired by your recent moving of house?
No, I guess it was it was more just missing seeing people, I guess. And right at the beginning of lockdown, I kind of had this sort of idea of, because there was this feeling like we were all in the same boat, because, you know, worldwide we were all kind of, it sort of level, it wasn't the great leveler in lots of ways, but we won't go into that, but, you know, in a sort of loose way it was. But then I was like, well, we can't all be on the same boat, because we've got to stand 2 meters apart and isolate in our homes. So then I had this idea that we were all in our own boats, but in like a big flotilla, a big fleet. And then I just started kind of thinking of this weird, you know, how we're all like far apart, but it just sort of accentuates the bond that we have with people, and just people that are struggling. You know, people, there were lots of moments in lockdown where I desperately wished that I lived on my own, and I you know, could just have some time on my own. But actually, I think people living on their own, it was especially hard. And so I think that song is a sort of a song for them, I guess.
Wonderful. Well, we'll look forward to that later. I mean, arguably as well, Making Waves, given some of the conversations that have taken place, is a song that's very much stood the test of time and is about as relevant today as it was when you wrote it 10 years ago or whatever. But
I think musically it's stood the test of time.
I think so. Absolutely.
Well,
yeah.
Maybe we won't go down that rabbit hole, but I can't listen to it anymore, is all I'll say.
Because the album or the song?
The album.
Because?
It just makes all my cells close up and shrivel, and I think it's just of that time. I was under quite a lot of control from various industry people at that time, so it wasn't really, you know, I'm proud of it. They're my songs, but I think the way that those songs were dressed up wasn't necessarily in the way that I would have done myself. But I mean, it's all, you know, subjective, what's right and wrong. There is not such a thing in music. So but no, I'm being negative.
No. You're more than entitled to, especially when it's your own art. You're definitely more than entitled to. More recently, Story Song Scientists, which my only gripe with the album is it's not very long.
No.
But
It's
I'm
another one.
led to believe there's more to come.
There is, yeah.
Excellent. Good to hear. Okay, right. 10 questions to ask throughout this too, taken from inside the actor's studio. How quickly did you come up with the answers to the questions, or did you deliberate over some of them?
Some of them quite quickly, and others I had to think. And I was quite sort of shocked at my what my initial gut reaction answer would reveal about my personality.
Well, let's find out more. And starting with, what is your favourite word?
So I've thought quite a lot about this one because I love words very much. But I think my favourite word is probably water because I feel like it could remind me about lots of things. And I love water and I love. So even though the sound of it I don't particularly like, it's just something about it that it can take me down lots of pleasurable thought paths. I could go to a bath, or I could go, the sea, or lots of places that make me feel calm, which is, so water. There you go.
Wonderful. I mean, to be fair, it's not for me to tell you what your definition of favourite should be in this question. So
Okay.
that's as good an explanation as any we've had, and clearly something that means to you. And I don't know if that's coincident, given that your last solo album was Rivers,
Yeah.
as well. So what's your least favourite word?
Very easy. Trump.
I mean, it's difficult. I hope it doesn't become a word in the lexicon that means something after his presidency comes to an end, which, with big hope, is in months, not years' time. But what is it? I mean, it almost feels like an obvious question, but from your perspective, what is it about him or his presidency that grates you the most if you were to prioritize the issues?
I guess the part that's most damaging, which is that he's so powerful and influential, when someone that cruel, ill-equipped, and I mean, I could reel off some other words. Are we allowed to swear in this?
Oh, given that one of the questions is what is your favourite curse word? Yes.
Okay, yeah. I've got that ready. The whole thing frightens me. So I think, there's quite a lot of people in this world that are powerful and shouldn't be, and he's the main one.
He's definitely one of them.
He's just awful. It just makes me feel sick in all the ways possible.
No, absolutely. I wonder if there are, it's the damage to society, above all else for me, that thankfully we are a resilient race that can hopefully come together again. But
I mean, I think there's an element that we've made quite a lot of mistakes as a country, and recently, and I don't think we have a high horse to stand on in terms of our situation right now either. May I say? It's not like
no, and I wonder how much of that is influenced by Trump as well,
and by Rupert Murdoch, there's so much more going on that is totally unjust, and it's just scary. I think maybe since I've brought another human into the world, I think what's his future? And right now, don't know. We're gonna have to. I don't know what we're gonna do. It's incredibly melancholy.
It's all right. Well, let's lift it, go, and then focus on the positives. What turns you on?
Oh, wait, what did I think of it? I think I was going to say fireman, but not in the kind of classical sense of why fireman might be perceived as a turn on. I think it's that mixture of, and this isn't just from a sort of sexy way. I'm digging a hole. Basically, it's that mixture of kindness, pure kindness and goodness, with a kind of kick-ass, let's make something happen and do. It's not nicey kindness. It's like fuck yeah kindness. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So I think that, and a fireman kind of encapsulates what I mean. It's easier for me to say that rather than kick-ass kindness.
Kick-Ass Kindness. I like that. Feels like an album title in itself. But it's about the action, I think, is what you're saying as well.
Yeah,
It's
just
not just the
not
thought.
dilly-dallying, which I guess with your
What?
kindness, just being brave with your kindness,
Hmm,
I guess.
I love that. That's a great line. What turns you off?
And people that aren't kind, people that complain about the NHS, people that complain about people that complain
Sorry,
about
hang on.
schools.
Hang on. We're in July. People are complaining about the NHS still. Surely no one has a right to do this.
I know exactly. You'd think. I mean, that is just it's just the worst. It is the
We
worst.
were applauding them a few months ago.
I know, and we should continue doing that.
Yes.
But in action rather than, you know, tapping a saucepan outside your door.
What sound or noise do you love? Tapping of
Um,
saucepans outside doors?
very good. I think. Oh, I had an answer to this and I've forgotten it. What was it? It was something quite nice. I guess just nature, woods, the sound of being in the woods, bit of wind, maybe a light bit of rain. Yeah, nature sounds.
There is, if I was to compile a list of things that you would keep from the lockdown, and I'm talking like when we were in full lockdown, obviously you've mentioned the clapping for the NHS. For me, it was great way of meeting the neighbours as well, who I hadn't really conversed with before. But and also, I guess nature would play a part in that by the sheer fact that there was less traffic on the road, and you could hear bird song. Anything else you'd keep from that time?
I think there was quite a lot of nice, like you just say about, like you just said about sort of community and stuff. People, I think, because people felt vulnerable in their homes and had no escape from that. You know, there was a little bit more connecting of community and yeah, I guess just having a slightly slower pace of life for a little bit, but everyone being in the same sort of situation. Well, I say everyone, you know, which disregards the people working in the NHS and delivery drivers and bin men and shopkeepers and, you know, hundreds of vital people. But yeah, so I think the whole nature thing was the main thing. There's this thing called soft fascination, which is about kind of the therapy of being in nature and how it's so sort of nurturing for the body, mind, and soul and stuff. Sounds a bit hippie, but it is an actual. I've been sort of researching it for a while now, and I think a lot of people realise that. And I guess that was something that I liked about, you know, seeing people that otherwise wouldn't have the time in their busy lives to do certain things, and then doing them and realising how beneficial and wonderful those things was quite nice.
And of course, the one thing that's forced upon you is the fact that you can't perform. We've talked about this already, but you have performed online. And I want to ask, as a self-confessed reluctant performer, do you feel happier on stage performing or in the online environment of your own home?
There's quite a lot about my own home that I like, because the idea that if it all got too much, I could just like step away. Like I'm more in control, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But equally, I'm not in control of things like sound and, you know, I try my best here to get as good a sound as possible. But then people inevitably, or, you know, the majority of people are listening on a laptop, and that's fine. That's understandable if you don't, you know, I'm not expecting everyone to have a kind of you know, PA system set up for them to play it through, but it can sometimes defeat the object a little bit. And yeah, I like, but you know, I do like performing in some ways. I'm just there's a lot that is sort of at odds with my personality and my what I feel comfortable with, that I have to overcome in order to do it. And there's pluses about it all, but I do like kind of sitting. It's kind of weird when at the end of a song when you're like, just on your own in a room. Um, but then I quite like the idea that everyone else is in their sort of safe space and everyone else has kind of got their things that they love around them and they're kind
Hmm.
of so yeah, there's bits that I like about both, I guess.
And
But
how
I
does
don't
that
get as
differ?
nervous about the online stuff.
No, okay. But then, of course, when you're performing online, it's not just you, it's with Finley Napier too. So, given that you're in your own homes, but you're performing together, does how, I mean, that feels like I'm not sure how I'm getting my head around trying to position it, and I'm not the musician.
Well,
Um,
yeah, so it doesn't actually work if we play at the same time. I think there are a lot of tech heads desperately working out how to create some kind of software to allow that to happen at the moment. I reckon probably right at the beginning of lockdown when that became clear that wasn't possible. Um, and when I guess it was clear before, but like how vital it was. There's some people really trying to sort that out. So we just alternated songs, um, and I mean, obviously all the songs that we've written together are duets. So one of us will normally take the lead and then do harmonies or whatever. But there was one particular song. It's a love song between Alexa and Siri, and so I play Alexa and Finny plays Siri. So we kind of alternate whole parts. So we tried to do that at the end by kind of playing solo and then handing it over, but it ended up being a bit of a clusterfuck. And it even that there was still a gap where it wouldn't even slightly be smooth. So
right.
which shows that if you were to try and play together, it would just be mayhem. So yeah, it's a shame. I've done a couple of other online gigs. I work with a folk singer called Jackie Oates, and we were meant to be doing Oxford Folk Weekend, and again that was really weird. What's weird is when you're hearing someone else play a song that you normally have a part in, and you can't sing along. You have to kind of mute yourself. So that's
And also, I'm not saying you do it for the adulation or applause, but it must be strange at the end of a song not to hear that back from the people that are watching, who I'm sure are applauding you, but you just can't hear it.
yeah, it is strange, and for me, it's dangerous because um, my sort of anxiety around performing leads to just a slew of inappropriateness in between the songs because I can't control what I'm saying a lot of the time,
Hmm.
um, and so that sort of extra silence kind of I think and the extra silence and also the kind of this isn't real because I can't see these people, I can't hear them, and we're not all breathing in the same room. There's the part of my brain that thinks like, well, let's see, you know, what we can say.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I can imagine that all sorts go around during that silence when that happens. I forgot what we're up to with the questions. Well, what sound or noise do you hate?
Lots. At the moment, I think it's sort of like assaulting noises. So, cars that like when cars go really really fast or a
Hmm.
motorbike and it just goes through my body like liquid pain. Um, so yeah, I guess that's probably the worst at the moment. There's probably other ones.
No,
Really
they're
not a
pretty.
fan of people eating noise. Um, yeah, I've lost a few friends to that. Not really, but
In a fatal way.
yes, I've just stabbed them with my fork. Um, yeah, but I think just um, loud noises in general, really, unless it's music, I don't like.
I I I know you said the noise of people eating just as I'd finished taking a sip of coffee. So I don't know if those were two related, but
No, no,
I've
that's
finished the coffee
absolutely
now
fine.
anyway.
Don't
Did
worry.
I'm curious to ask what music you do dislike thoroughly. Like, what would be the bottom of your list?
Um, I think I, I guess just very, very repetitive. sort of electronic music. Not that I can get into it at first, but I find it frustrating where it sort of doesn't lead. Obviously, it does sort of ramp up, but unless you're kind of on drugs, I guess it doesn't. It's sort of unsatisfying to listen to, and I guess I tell you what, the worst thing I've ever heard is
Go on.
musically the theme tune to the new Peter Rabbit.
I can't picture it. I
It's sacrilege.
audibly picture it.
It is
No.
honestly, I can't believe it was allowed.
um,
That.
no, I'm almost going to encourage my youngest. Let's watch Peter Rabbit, or at least the first minute of it, just to understand.
I would actually just take my word for it and not put yourself through that. If you want to understand,
All right, maybe I should take your advice. What is your favourite curse word?
clusterfuck.
Oh, well, see, now I assumed it would either be fuck or clusterfuck because it's been mentioned a couple of times already. But what is it about clusterfuck that you particularly like?
It feels like a release when I say it. It feels like it's like a very accurate description of what's going on inside me most of the time, and I just like the way it sounds.
Yeah.
It sounds, I do also like. I've been saying bastard cake a lot recently. I don't know where that one's come from.
I've not heard that before, but I like it.
Yeah, that. Or I'm gonna always say it like bastard cake.
Yeah.
Don't know where that came from. But no, I really like swearing, and I really need to stop.
But you don't swear much in your songs.
Not much.
Is there a conscious reason for that?
Since all my so basically, I consciously didn't early on, and then I mean sometimes it's just not needed. You know, I'd only do it if I felt it was really it had to be there. But now all my grandparents are dead, so I can swear as much as I want. So that kind of, you know, gets rid of the obligation I had to remain polite.
No, how very respectful of you.
I
I feel that now is a good time to hear the first of your two songs,
Sure.
if we may. And again, well, we know one of them's Doors, don't know what the other one is, nor do I know what order they're going to appear in. So I will let you just introduce a bit of the backstory to the song as well, if possible.
Yeah. So this isn't Doors. It's called this song's called Happy Saint Cecilia. Saint Cecilia is the patron saint of music, amongst other things. So this is a song. It's basically about my relationship with my brother, and kind of I'm 5 years older than my brother, and he is my best friend and my favourite person. But it comes that time where I kind of got pregnant, and then the kind of all these I had to pretend to be an adult a bit. I guess I'm gonna try and I'm just gonna sing the song. I think.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
There's some nappies. I just was gonna do that so that I can. Behind the emerald wall, 600 bales of straw soak up the sound of laughter. The airstream on the drive provides a backdrop when the people need to pose. Put the kettle on and wake after this take, I swear coffee's getting stronger. Stay up late debating what best serves this song, Hammond or the Rose. You go your own way, made up your mind, never did have patience for the lazy. I understand now, you go your own way, I'll be fine, just lights loop the twister into right, shoot another bag. A fleet of cars and entourage, Diabolos and Scotch bonnets. Think of all the music made inside that space you made. Happy Saint Cecilia. I see now why you had to draw the line. I'll never stop supporting you. You go your own way, made up your mind. Never did have patience for the lazy. I understand now. You go your own way, I'll be fine. Just find it hard to separate your needs from mine. But I understand now. I understand now.
That was beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you very much.
It's a little longer than I thought it was.
Well, good as far as I'm concerned. So thank you very much. I hadn't thought that for a moment, but it was a beautiful song. When do you write it? Are you writing at the moment both for yourself and for the Story Song Scientists?
Yeah. Well, so I'm writing stuff for me. So I've got like I think I'll release a little EP at the end of this year, or just kind of eke out the tracks that are kind of things that I've written since becoming a mother. But it's not really about that, because that was I consciously kind of didn't want to just write songs about being a mum, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So yeah, and then Finley and I have written loads that we're kind of in the kind of pre-production demo stage, so I'm doing quite a lot of that. And then I've been writing for another project that I'm not allowed to talk about yet, but it's for a documentary that I can't talk about.
Oh, exciting to find out when you can. So when you've got these different writing, when you have an idea for a song, how do you decide whether this is a potential Story Song Scientist song, or a Megan Henwood song, or the new project that you can't talk about song? How do you pigeonhole it?
I guess when I'm writing, there's quite a different kind of approach. So if I'm writing for myself, I'll know that before I've even sat down, if you see what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm writing for another project or another person, I mean, obviously, often if I'm writing for another person, it's a co-write, so either with that person or with another producer or something. So I'll be, and the headspace and the approach is completely different. And then with Findley, I mean, I guess, pretty much everything that we've written together in being in the same room, and we've come with ideas and then just riffed off them. But the next set of songs with Finley are much more science-based, actually science-based. So I guess, like, if I hear of a story or read something, see something that is kind of vaguely sciencey, then I'll take that idea and know that that's, for the Story Song Scientists, or and then, with other projects, there often is like quite a specific brief, either in sort of lyrical content or general sort of atmosphere. So
right, okay. So last few questions from the 10. What profession of your own would you like to attempt?
So I was thinking I would probably still be some kind of writer. So maybe like a travel writer would be nice, because I like doing both of those things. I think that would be fun.
So have
travel
you
and food writer?
Or a combination of the two?
Oh, yeah.
Well, there you go. You can make a documentary about it and then perform the music to it as well. So much that. Have you ever contemplated writing other than songs? So books seems an obvious one to go down, or of any form.
I think I would really like that. I was actually meant to be doing a creative writing course in April to try and help me focus a bit more on other writing ideas because I lose focus quite quickly on things if I um, am not kind of familiar or if I don't know, musically not so much, but um, so I was trying to kind of harness focus to do just that. Um, and a bit of poetry, I guess. But I'd love to write more, write in different kind of forms and for different things.
So what type of book do you think would be the type of book you would start to attempt?
I think it would just be a really good story.
Okay.
Um, and there's a couple of so there is a story about how my dad came into the world. My dad was adopted, um, but the whole story behind it, I'm not going to go into it now, so that I'll leave it on a cliffhanger and then hopefully it might become a book one day. But the story behind it is quite beautiful and really just. But I think it has to be well told. So I recently read a book called The Feather Thief, that was about this crazy thing that happened, where this man stole loads of. It's a true story. Stole loads of birds of paradise from the Natural History Museum in it's what's it called? Oh shit. Wait, can you just wait there for 2 seconds while I get it? Because I know.
Yeah, no, go for it. Go for it. I'm going to hit pause.
It's worth me. Basically, this dude stole a load of. Oh, I don't really want to be mean because I was about to be mean about this book. It's a great story, but I don't think it's very well written.
Okay.
But that's because the man that wrote it is a fly fisherman. He's not a writer. But I wish that someone that could really have told a story well had got hold of this story before this book was written. I don't mean to be mean to Kirk Wallace Johnson though, because I think it's worth reading even though it's not well written, because the story is crazy. Find out about The Feather Thief, everyone.
I will. I absolutely will. I like the fact that although I've never thought of a cover version being done in a book form. Obviously, cover versions you always assume of songs, but I've never seen anyone rewrite a book with their own writing style.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, actually. Yeah.
I wonder if I assume maybe because there isn't a market for it as such, but a tough one. If you were to perform a cover song, and I don't recall ever hearing you record one, but what would it be? What would be top of your? This isn't one of the questions that I prepped, but just while we're on the topic, what would it be, or who would it be by?
So I have done a few. It's always scary to like do songs that you really like because you're worried that it will make you hate them.
And did it?
I did a cover of Kate Bush, This Woman's Work.
Right.
And I mean, it came out all right because Tom Excel produced it, but I kind of wish I hadn't gone there.
Has it changed how you feel about the song?
No, the song's amazing. I just feel like I've disrespected the song and her and everyone that likes Kate Bush all in one fell swoop. But I don't know. I don't have the I don't have that quality that her song should be given. Anyway, I love Bill Withers and I love singing Bill Withers.
Yeah.
And so I'd probably do. I mean, to myself, I could do a Bill Withers covers album, just a Bill Withers song. So that's probably what I do for fun.
Sounds great. I love it. Good choices. What professional job would you not like to do?
I mean, I guess I feel like a lot of the people that get the most of the sort of dick people are the people on like the receptionists at A&E, or those people that are just trying to like do their job, and they're sort of the first like point of call, and so therefore they are the people that get the kind of brunt of it. I think that would be awful to work as a receptionist in A&E. You'd get just the worst of people, I think.
They must put up with a lot of shit.
Yeah. But you might get the best of people as well. So
there are some of them that don't. I remember going to see a doctor many years ago and phoning up the GP surgeon and just saying, or the GP and speaking to the receptionist and just saying, I'd like to make an appointment with the doctor. Certainly, what's wrong with you? That's kind of why I need to see the doctor.
Yeah.
But turns out that didn't help my cause in any way,
No.
shape or form. As I can imagine now, a little bit older, why? Or I can understand why. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
So I think he'd be surprised to see me. And I guess my immediate thing
You
was
don't come
I
across
thought,
as a bad person.
oh, very kind of you to say so, Ed. I think my immediate thought would be for him to say, I'm sending you back to start again. Do it better this time.
Well, musically, if you were to live it all again, just write the same songs to start with, because I'm a big fan of your work so far, and also be intrigued to, as an adoptee myself, I'd be intrigued to read the story of your father. Also, just because I think you're a wonderful storyteller, which is what's drawn me to your songs in the first place. So thank you very much for that. What song are we going to hear from you now?
I am going to do Doors now, if that's okay.
Yes.
I've just got to change the tuning a little bit.
That's all right. I like that sound of tuning. I don't know why that, I can't see what's going on in terms of the changes that are being made, but I think with a live performance, it's a requirement.
Yeah, so years and years ago, I toured with an amazing blues guitarist called Eric Bibb,
Mm-hmm.
and he used to say that tuning's like aeroplane maintenance. It's tedious, but it's always worth it.
Yeah. That's a lovely analogy. I like it.
Yeah. So this is Doors. I'm just going to do this because I'm in a really weird chair. No one's an island, darling. Go ask your friends. I know the times are trying. This tunnel ends with a light. When we reunite, when the doors are finally flung open, we will come running to you. And kissing's in season, when the gauze is in bloom. This hibernation, darling, it takes its toll. These pixelations don't have hands to hold, but you know, it makes a fonder heart grow. When the doors are finally flung open, we will come running to you. And kissing's in season, when the gauze is in bloom. In a flotilla, darling, of spaced out boats. So if you're feeling frightened, don't ache alone, break the silence. No one's an island. And when the doors are finally flung open, we will come running to you. And kissing's in season, when the gauze is in bloom. Kissing's in season, when the gauze is in bloom. There you go.
Oh, such a beautiful song. It's such a, I think, an uplifting song as well, which is phenomenal. So thank you so very much for that. I hope there will be a time when you can come to St Ives and perform here in person. I know you're in Oxfordshire, we're in Cambridgeshire. I don't think there's a barrier to people from Oxfordshire come to Cambridgeshire,
Not
despite the
yet.
Oxford-Cambridge rivalry. No, there isn't. No, not yet. So I hope that can happen one day. But for now, it's been phenomenal meeting you. Thank you so very much indeed.
Thanks so much, Ed. I find it always a bit strange having a conversation with someone when I want to ask you questions and like too, and it feels a bit one-sided. So
that's all right. Ask me a question. Any question you like, then.
What's your favourite book on the bookshelf behind you?
So my favourite book, hang on, bear with me one moment, is a book called... So it's a book called 10 Words by Jeremy Waite. So he has explored people in culture, in politics. He's done a podcast that's backed it up, but told the story of phenomenal people like Maya Angelou and, from Terry Wogan even, and taken the 10 words of their 10 words that encapsulates their personality and then tells the story that is less known about them, that not only can you read to learn about them, but can form an element of inspiration about how you live your own life too. It's 10 Words by Jeremy Waite is phenomenal. And in terms of fiction book, I couldn't tell you. I'm a big fan of Colin Bateman. He's got a very sarcastic, dry sense of humour, and he's a crime writer, but he's very good. But yes, 10 Words by Jeremy Waite, and there's a podcast that goes with it too. So
love a good
phenomenal.
Oh shit, sorry. Thank you, Ed. It was so nice to chat with you.
Likewise, I've really, really enjoyed it. Well, what a way to start the day. Don't know what time anyone is listening to this, but it's now 11:15. But starting a day, chatting with you and hearing you perform a couple of songs, I can't think of many better ways to start it. So for that, thank you.
Thank you very much. You've given me a baby-free morning as well.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ed.